What a great whiskey. Nice quiet night to reflect on the whiskey endeavor or exploration and how the whole thing started. So, Scotch especially has been a part of my life for quite some time. My grandparents used to drink it generally on the rocks, my great-grandfather being from Scotland. Obviously it was special to him as well, and I guess I picked up on that at a young age. So when I started drinking Scotch, it was usually Scotch on the rocks. And, you know, I'd start off with Johnny Walker Red, moved on to Black, and then on to Glenlivet for my first single malt. And enjoyed it, but again, on the rocks. And it was pretty unusual that I would drink whiskey neat. Not saying it didn't happen, it was just unusual. And, you know, being so used to drinking whiskey on the rocks that I think a lot of what you get out of drinking it neat, the flavors and whatnot, were kind of lost on me at that point. So, fast forward several years, and it was the holidays, and my brother-in-law was kind enough to buy me a bottle of what has become my favorite Scotch, and that is sitting beside me here. And this is Lagavulin 16. It is a peated whiskey, single malt, from an island in Scotland by the name of Islay. And that completely changed my way of thinking about Scotch. It is smokier than what you generally encounter. There are a lot of flavors that you don't generally encounter in this type of Scotch. And my first taste of it was neat, and it was mind-blowing and world-changing as far as my perspective when it comes to Scotch. And from that point forward, I realized there was more to be had drinking a small dram of Scotch neat or whiskey to get those different flavors, because there was so much to it. When you look at what goes into making a whiskey, it's absolutely amazing the complexity that goes into it. I mean, first you've got the grains that are used, those have an impact. The water that's used has an impact as well. There's the distillation process, the type of stills that are used, pot stills versus column stills, how fast a process they use for distillation. Once distillation is completed, then you're talking about, okay, what kind of cask is it going to be put in? How long is it going to be in those casks? What type of climate is affecting those casks? So there's so much that goes into it. And then on top of that, the distiller can take one batch of whiskey, put it in multiple casks, and then age them however many years, let's say 16 in this case, and then mix and match those casks into one batch to get the flavor that they're looking for. So there's so much that goes into it, and it can have such a huge and dramatic impact on the flavor and the aromas that you get off of it. It's really impressive. So this particular one is very smoky, kind of like that campfire smoke. Briny, like it's oceanside, which it is. Definitely get a lot of peat. Peat being what's generally used as a fuel source for drying the grains or the malt. But it's been a very interesting journey. I've learned quite a bit. Each whiskey brings something different to the table. Some fit my palate better than others. Again, I prefer the smoky. The sweet ones, such as the sherry finishes, I enjoy some of those, some of them not so much. But it's been a very interesting learning experience, and I'm glad that Mark is joining me on this journey. We both seem to have similar tastes and both enjoy the experience quite a bit. You know, generally when I'm sampling whiskey, you'll see I pour maybe a finger, if that, and chase it with water afterwards to cleanse the palate. But the idea is to savor it, to get the flavors out of it, to see what went into it, to learn the history of that particular distillery and what happened to result in the contents of that bottle. So it's been a very interesting trip, and I hope you'll continue to join us. Cheers.